I have an important message for a select few. That's not all of you. This is for a select few of you guys that are listening or watching this. It's for trade business owners that have been around for a while. They understand the frustrations of marketing and being in control or not being in control. Guys, it's 2021 and many of you are marketing yourselves like it's the year 2000. Off the back of a global pandemic, we've seen huge shifts in the market with people turning to service providers they know, like, and trust. There's never been a better time to establish the tools and frameworks in your business to take advantage of these things. These things that will serve you not only now, but serve the business ongoing. Over at Tradie Web Guys, we've recently launched the Elevation program. It equips businesses with the tools and the programs required to successfully market themselves. It gives you tools to re-engage with your past and present clients whilst nurturing potential clients. It creates assets in your company's name with no proprietary licenses. You own these things 100%. It gives your business a huge head start on the search engines with advanced SEO, and it collates all of the programs and all the services you need into one neat little bundle, including things like web development, website management, email marketing, SEO, Google Ads, loads of different softwares, strategy, support, and a bunch of other things. After going through this program, you'll have all the tools you need to market your business ongoing. You'll have a huge head start in your marketing, and you'll also have a CRM so you can continue to build your database whilst engaging your current customers and re-engaging those customers that you've essentially forgotten about. Marketing tools that you need, and they'll all be in your control. You don't owe anyone anything. You'll be able to dial it up and down essentially as you see fit. So why is this an important time to talk about this? Guys, it's important to know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. Meaning, you want to be in control. You want to know enough to be dangerous. I'm not trying to give you more work here. Essentially, we'll set everything up for you, teach you the basics, and then it's all yours. It's complete transparency. You'll never grow a business past a certain point without marketing. Word of mouth will only ever get you so far. We've spoken about it on the podcast a load of times. At some stage, you need to invest in these things. This is the simplest and most affordable way to do it. For more information, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/elevation, fill in the form, and let's make 2021 the year that you took control. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Tommy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Matt. How you going?
Very well. Lovely to have you back. How's things at your end?
Yeah, it's good, mate. Yeah, business is busy and COVID hasn't had too much of an effect on us, and yeah, things are cruising along.
So for the listeners and viewers out there, you may have heard Tom in a previous podcast back in episode 230, which was titled How to Become a National Award-Winning Trade Business. Tom is the owner of Virtual Trade Assistant. He is the owner of Watertight Canberra, a plumbing company that took out the 2019 National Telstra Small Business of the Year Award. He's also the chairman of Master Plumbers Australia and New Zealand, and he's the president of the Master Plumbers in the ACT. You are a bit of an overachiever by the sound of it, Tom. How do you possibly have time to do this podcast?
Mate, having a good team of VAs behind me is the obvious answer there. So
you have one of those business cards with all those titles underneath it, like an A4 size business card.
Squeeze it into the signature block somewhere.
Mate, welcome back. Yeah, as you alluded to today, we're not talking about the plumbing business as such. We're talking about the your other company, which is Virtual Trade Assistant, and we're going to be lending ourselves to some conversations around the magical world of outsourcing. Now, we've actually done some episodes on outsourcing in the past, which I'm sure some of the listeners and viewers may be familiar with. I'll put some links to those episodes in the show notes so you can go check it out. But I know this conversation is going to take a slightly different spin, and I'm looking forward to it because I think one thing that we've learned over the last 12 months is the value of smart operations, smart processes, smart team building, cutting costs on things like potentially having an office. So a lot of people have started opening their, ears have been pricking up to things like creating systems and processes. And then a lot of people have also been pretty keen on the idea of, leveraging outsourcing staff, whether it's local or offshore or whatever it might be. So I think this conversation has come at a very, very timely point. Now, so do you want to give us a little bit of a background, I suppose? I know you've been through a bit of a journey to get where you are in relation to outsourcing over the years. Maybe give us a bit of a general overview as to how you got to where you are, through the plumbing business, so on and so forth. I know we've spoken about this a little bit in a previous episode, but I'd still like to think we should recap for the listeners out there.
Sure. So I started Watertight Canberra about 11 years ago now, and we ran for about 2 years. I wrapped up the business. Went around Australia for 12 months with my then girlfriend, now wife, and then came back, and we've been running ever since we got back. It was on that Australia trip that we actually heard about the idea of using people overseas in your local business, and how easy that could be. My brother-in-law at the time, told us he was doing it for some work that he was doing, and so we came back and went out to basically learn how to outsource. The first couple of people that we put on, didn't work that well. We had a couple of people that customers would hang up when they would ring them to confirm an appointment, and we realised that didn't work fairly quickly. And then over the years, we've sort of built systems and things in place. So Watertight Canberra now has 3 full-time VAs. We've got 2 admin assistants, and then one who's an international accountant who's basically our full-time bookkeeper. Yeah.
Great. And so I think, obviously we're going to talk to a few specific areas of the outsourcing conversation, one of them being, taking local jobs away. The other one, is going to be about how to actually define which parts of the business we should be outsourcing, because I think a lot of people, that's not really clear. And also one thing that's certainly not clear, which we're going to dive into, is, that whole methodology around creating processes so that you can bring people in effectively, you can train them the right way, they can follow your procedures, and they can do things you want them done. Because I know certainly I've been in that situation. I'm guessing you've probably been in it more than me, where you haven't got the right processes and things in place, and you bring somebody into a position to deliver a certain role or responsibility, and then because you haven't equipped them properly, they don't do the job properly, you end up sacking them and you blame them. And the reality is it's just a lack of process and lack of leadership on your behalf. And then we're going to talk a little bit, I think, to the making sure you hiring the right team member and that kind of thing. So we won't, obviously this is quite a broad conversation, and I'm thinking we may end up coming back to do a bit of an extension on this. So we might just do a bit of a general overview into some of these macro things. And then if you listeners and viewers out there are interested, we can dive a little bit deeper into some of these specifics. So you just let us know in the Facebook community if you want Tom to expand on any of these areas specifically, and we'll happily jump back in and do that. How does that sound, Tom?
Sounds like a plan.
Cool, man. All right. So why don't we start, first of all, with talking about what actually outsourcing is before we get into it, just so people actually understand what we're talking about here.
Sure. So, outsourcing is getting someone who's outside of your immediate business team, your employees, and having them complete work for you. So I suppose the very specific part that Virtual Trade Assistant deals with is using people overseas, where we tend to be using people in Manila or the Philippines as a whole, and setting them up with Australian businesses.
The paradigm shift there for anyone listening or watching this that perhaps is used to that business model where you've got people sitting in an office, or you've got your bookkeeper sitting in house, or you might have your marketing person sitting in house, or whatever it is. The paradigm shift there is, well, do you actually need to have somebody sitting in a seat in your office to do this role, or can somebody potentially do exactly the same thing at perhaps a lot cheaper rate, perhaps not, but sometimes a lot cheaper rate, but certainly fundamentally at a lot less of a resource expense to you from things like office expenses and things like having just the cost of filling that seat, and having somebody maybe locally on shore with all the fees you've got to incur as an employer, with things like your superannuation and your insurances and your holiday and sick pay and all that kind of stuff. I know we've got a huge, well, I won't say huge team, we've got a team that's largely offshore, and it works fantastic. But it took a lot of stepping stones to get us there, mind you. It still takes a lot of stepping stones to make that work. So
that's right. But then the other side of it as well, and probably more than 50% or probably 80% of our customers are from this sort of things. They're guys that are maybe between 1 and 3 sort of people on the road. And those people, at that size, you really can't afford to have a full-time admin assistant sitting in an office in Australia answering the phone. So it's not realistic. So instead, the tradesman ends up answering the phones, or hanging in a roof truss or under a house, and he's not happy about it. Customers aren't, strata managers or property managers aren't getting replies, or jobs aren't getting scheduled and booked because, by the time they get home, it's 7:00 at night and they can't actually make phone calls and booking jobs. So for us, it's actually also about creating a job where there actually wasn't an opportunity there before that.
Expand on that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I mean, so for Watertight Canberra, we employed our first VA when it was me and an apprentice, and we did it because I was noticing that every job I was going to, I was saying, "Sorry, Mrs. Jones, I know I've been on the phone a lot. I'm gonna take 15 minutes off your bill," and I was doing that 4 or 5 times a day.
Right.
And not only that, customers can tell when you're distracted and you're trying to get other things done.
Sure.
And then don't forget as well, I mean, you're paying money for marketing, and if your phone's going to voicemail, they're probably moving on to the next person on Google or Yellow Pages or wherever it is you're advertising. They're probably not going to leave you a voicemail and wait for you to call back, and unless they're a very loyal customer. So
what about, I know we've had this conversation loads in the past in the groups and with clients and with friends and all that kind of thing, and a lot of guys have, and to be fair, probably to preface what I'm about to say, that whole mantra around, I've trained my clients to do this, and a lot of my colleagues and friends and customers say, well, I can't get somebody else answering my phone because I've trained them to know that I'm the one that's going to be answering it, and I'm the one that's going to be on the call, giving them the answers they need at that time. And if I don't do that, then they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a problem that a lot of businesses have, and I think everyone who goes into business starts off in that situation where you're using your mobile number as the primary contact number, and your customers are just getting used to the fact that they call you and you get the problem sorted for them.
Sure.
Look, it's just a fact. If you want to scale your business and you want to become more than a 3-man team, you have to start training your customers and getting them to work to your business. Stop working to their business and have people working to your business. And you'll find once those customers realise that person on the end of the phone actually can help them and can resolve their problem, they're straight away on board. And our strata managers absolutely love our VAs because within 5 minutes of us receiving an email work order, the job's been scheduled, the tenants have been called, and the strata manager's got an email back saying, "Thanks, Rhonda. We've booked this in for Andrew at 7 a.m. on Thursday, and both tenants have agreed they're going to be there." So we're able to provide that next level service. And now that our strata managers know that that's what they get, they would prefer to speak to Joseph and Jonas and me, because they know that, well, one, I probably don't answer my phone, and if I do, I'm probably going to forget what you told me anyway, or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Great. And so what about the conversation around, well, I don't want somebody offshore answering my phone, so I don't because that we get that a lot as well.
Yeah, sure. Certainly a lot of people get a little bit concerned by that. Look, I can compare it to calling the Commonwealth Bank, right? Like I'm a Commonwealth Bank customer. I recently bought something off Marketplace and I transferred someone $90 to their mobile phone number, and then that person never received that money. I can show you the screenshots. I tried to call them 3 times on 3 separate occasions, and I was on hold for more than 1 hour. The first thing that they say to you is, all of our call assistants or call centres are in Australia. I sit on hold for 1 hour and wait for them to get there. I would much prefer to have that phone call answered within 5 minutes. They probably, you could probably train a very low-level person to give me the answer that I needed there.
Yeah. And
I actually never got onto them in that occasion. So again, once your customers realise that the person on the other end of the phone can help them, then you'll find that 99% of them have no problem at all with it. For the 1% that do have a problem with it, whether it's, you could call it racist or whatever you want to call it. For me, myself, we just choose not to work with those people. We don't want to work with those people. If someone rings up and says something like that to us, we'll just basically say, thanks, you're probably not the right customer for our business. But it is very rare to get that, especially these days.
Well, exactly, especially these days. And I think, like you say, if a lot of the preconceptions around that sort of having somebody else answer your phone or having somebody that isn't local answering your phone do come from that mentality that we were so commonly experiencing over and over and over and over and over again, 10, 15 years ago, when it was some call center in India and you couldn't understand them. They couldn't answer you. They couldn't answer your questions. They just give you the ring around. It's like you're just being handballed between people. I think like what we're talking about here is a highly more refined, more personable approach. And essentially, they are an employee of the business, right? Like they are representing the business. They have all the information they need. They have access to the right departments they need to send people to. They have access to processes and policies and the way you carry out procedures and the way you invoice and, all that kind of stuff.
Joseph's been with me for 7 years. He's my longest standing employee, and I can hand on heart say he knows more off the top of his head. He would know more about running Watertight Canberra than what I do, especially from an administrative point of view. He's more in touch with what customers are doing and what jobs are going on and that sort of thing than what I am these days. So.
Yeah, sure. So is it a good time to sort of segue now into understanding like the parts of the business that you can't, well, let's not say should focus initially on offshoring and outsourcing?
Sure. Yeah, look, for me personally, I want to outsource 100% of my plumbing business.
Of course.
In the next 6 years, I actually want to have one or two, blokes that are taking over the business direction side of it. And that would be my overall goal. From a virtual assistant point of view, I guess one of the big key differences between us and other virtual assistant companies is we do encourage you to get someone to answer your phones. We do encourage you to have them reply to emails and all of these sort of things. So a lot of companies sort of say, no, we'll get them to do your accounts and that sort of thing. For us, like I say, we've grown from 2 staff members to our first VA, and we've got 15 at the moment. We're proof that it does work and it works really well. So I can rattle through the list of jobs if you want, but different procedures that we've actually got that our VAs do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, let's certainly do that, and then maybe after you can maybe shed some light on some of the fundamental areas which you see are some of the bottlenecks that businesses encounter typically, some of the bigger ones, like if you're going to, like, where to start kind of thing.
Sure. I look at Watertight, and this is just reading straight off our systems register, and I'll give you a plug there, Matt. I think we bought this systems register template layout from you guys many years ago. But so we've got a system for them to answer our phones so that they know exactly how to answer the phone. All of our vans have GPS in them, so our VAs are actually booking our services with our mechanic on days that are suitable, where the tradesman's got an RDO or whatever, and they're just following a simple procedure for that. We get Ream reward points, so every time we install a Ream hot water unit, we get $50 to $100 worth of points. It just needs to be registered. We used to not do that. Now our VAs lodge that for us, and we've set up the process. It works automatically. We send new customers an information pack when we set up a
digital information pack.
Yeah, that's right. Commercial customers. So that's got our insurances and our licenses and that sort of thing. Sure. I do want to improve my marketing and actually send all customers a physical information pack. So that's on the to-do list. When we take on a new strata building, we've got a lot of preventative maintenance plan, and there's a lot of job management setup that goes on in the background. They're doing that for us. They're running a scheduled maintenance report for the strata managers. They're doing hot water service inquiries. They're claiming the STC points. They're uploading price files. I've literally got about 100 and something systems here, all of which are just little bubbles that as a business owner, these are all 1,000 little bubbles that I used to have to carry around. Yeah. And slowly over the last 7 years, I've been building a system for each one of those little bubbles, and it's just become one thing that I haven't had to do.
So we're probably going a little bit off topic, but I love this conversation. So let's talk a little bit about those bubbles, and let's talk about what that system looks like and what that, how you deliver that to how you give access to your team for those sort of things. Did you basically start with a whiteboard with a whole bunch of like circles and go, well, this is all the shit I'm doing, one by one, just start documenting a process on it and doing it that way? Is that how it looked?
Pretty much, probably butcher's paper, not waffle, but yeah, we basically we wrote down every single task that we could possibly think of that actually happens on a day-to-day basis, and we went, okay, now what are the more time-consuming ones, and what are the easier ones to outsource? And we just started, writing a process for that. Over the years, all those little processes have just built and built and built. Yeah,
sure. So do you? I know you probably read Dave's book on systemology. Have you read that one yet?
I don't know if I've read that one. I've certainly read the E-Myth, and that's a fantastic book for someone to get their head in the right gear for creating systems and systemizing your business. But yeah.
So where I'm going with that is, do you, like, when you're designing these things that you need to basically, or when you were or are designing these systems that need to be created, are you doing it as part of a workflow? So you're saying, well, this is the delivered outcome. This is what we want. It's a block drain, it's a hot water installation, and these are all the steps involved in that. And then you systemize the parts of it which need systems. Is that how it works for you?
Yeah. For me personally, what I generally do is it says I'm doing something. It's if I'm in the office and I have to do something, I'm annoyed. I'm like, why am I here right now? Why am I dealing with this and not one of my VAs? And so if I'm in the office and, for example, I'm lodging an STC claim, I mean, we don't do a heap of STC claims. We're certainly doing a lot more these days, but when I wrote that process, we weren't doing a heap. So at the time, it might have been we were doing one every 2 months, and I'd forget how to do it, and then But so instead of I spend double the time actually processing it and then writing out the procedure, and then we give that to our VA, and they can do it from then on.
And where do the processes live, and in what format, and how are they basically created?
Sure. We create all of our processes in a Google Doc, and then those Google Docs are stored in a Google Team Drive. And the reason for that is it makes it very easy to control who has what level of access for that. You can have viewers, you can have editors, you can have commenters, and that sort of thing. We've also got a Google Sheet, which is our systems register, which is, as I say, it was part of something that we got from you a long time ago, and obviously we've edited it for ourselves. But we basically keep a full list of every system that we've got, and so,
and so that's like a spreadsheet, and it's got all of the things that you have there as like an easy way for people to navigate to them. Is that how it looks?
Exactly right. Well, yes, it also keep in there when it was created and the last time it was updated, and the person who's responsible for keeping that updated. So if we create a system, we want to make sure that it's not going out of date. So we might say this system has to be checked 6 monthly, and the person who's responsible for that is Joseph.
Sure.
So then he's responsible for logging in, checking it, updating it, making sure it's still current. If sometimes no changes are needed, he just updates the date on that to show that he's actually logged in and done it.
Sure.
And then we're uploading them as well to a wiki site, which again is something that we purchased from you originally. And we converted it. I know yours was on the original Google site. Yeah. We've converted it to the new Google site, and that works really well for us because rather than copying the document in, we're actually using our Google document as a live document insert. Yeah. So we still have our controls. If a tradesman's logging in, they can't see our accounting processes and that sort of thing.
Sure. And so all of the SOPs live as a Google Doc, and then you basically embed them into the wiki, which is permission based.
Google Drive's permission based, and then we embed them into the wiki. Yeah,
into the wiki. Yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's cool. So and so, I mean, as you say, you've got hundreds of these things. You know, if somebody comes to you and they say, right, Tom, I want to start scaling my business. Like, what's the process? Where do you start in relation to this? Like, how do you get people outsourcing the right things at the right time to free them up or free team members up or whatever it might be?
Sure. So I generally have a catch up with people and have a look at the systems and things that they're using in their business. Mm-hmm. Most important thing there is that they've got a cloud-based job management software. You'd be surprised at still the number of businesses that aren't using a simple cloud-based program, and that's the one. That's my one requirement, right? If you're not using a cloud-based system, I can't work with you, because we tried one person once where we had them logging into servers and all sorts of things, and it was an absolute nightmare. And but providing you've got a basic understanding of cloud software and you're using a cloud job management software, my suggestion to everyone is you want to start as soon as possible. The reason you want to do that is the sooner you start, the sooner you actually start offloading these little bubbles, which gives you more time to build systems to continue to offload more and more bubbles. A lot of people come in with this big roadblock in their mind, thinking I've got to fully systemize my business before a VA comes on board. The complete wrong attitude. One, when you work with someone, you're going to learn together that how things work in a particular way and that sort of thing. So you could write all your systems. One, you can't just plop someone in a seat and go, here's 100 systems, go for it. How is that person ever going to learn them? Better to get them to do 3 to begin with, and then slowly implement more and more and more. So
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know that's something that can be kind of overwhelming when somebody comes. I mean, even when people come into our business, they're like, "Oh, where do I start?" So then we had to have like an onboarding thing, which like this is your first week, and this is how to read our wiki, and this is how to it just sort of gives them some basic instructions on starting points, and this is how you search to see if there is an SOP on something, and this is who you contact if there isn't, and so on and so forth. So yeah, cool. All right. So I mean, I suppose some of the fundamental areas that you think people could potentially be. What are some of the things that you some of the daily tasks, if you will, or some of the things that the outsourcing staff tend to take off the hands of a given business that you would typically deal with daily, a trade business?
So, I mean, I guess the very first things are going to be your phone calls, probably.
Yes. Okay.
You know, and a lot of people will start with having them as a secondary person. So, you know, if your phone rings out, it goes to them. Look, my honest opinion is that's great to start with, having them as a secondary, but you want to work to them answering the phone all the time. Then processing things like, you know, if a property manager or strata manager is emailing in purchase orders or something along those lines, you know, creating job cards, making bookings and those sort of things. And then from there, I mean, you know, like the list is just so... They can literally just do anything you can do from a computer today. Right. You know, you can do from Manila. It doesn't matter if you're on Manila, you could be Darren on a boat in wherever he is these days, or you know, like you could literally be anywhere. Yeah, you know, just as an example of one of the small little things that we do in Watertight that makes us just so much better at what we do is when a block drain job comes into our system, our VAs automatically go on to, like, they get a task, and which automatically happens, and then they go on to the government website, they download the sewer tie plans, and they upload them into the job card, so that when the tradesman gets to site, he just clicks one button and he goes, right, this is how the drain's laid, and this is what I need to do. So
amazing.
It's just all those little things and that's come as a result of having excess time for me to go, oh, this would help. And then, you know, one day having 15 minutes to spit out a system for that. And then,
sure.
Yeah.
Do you, and what's your take on like documenting processes through video and screen share and that kind of thing? Are you guys pretty proactive with that?
Yeah. So we try. We've got a general rule that every procedure should have a screen share video,
sure,
so that someone can physically watch it. You'll be surprised how often someone will write a process and then they'll miss one key. You know, click on the big red button in the left corner or something like that.
Right.
When there's a video there, you can physically see that that's taken place, and it makes a lot more sense. So also once. This is another reason why I say to people, don't wait till you've got all your systems built, because once your VA's learnt to work with you and learned how you like things to be done, all you'll do to create a system is and that's what I'm doing most of the time now. I'm just physically recording my screen while I do something.
Yeah.
Maybe explaining a few things along the way, and then I just send them the Google Drive link, and then say, can you create this they create that into a system. They upload it to the wiki. They upload it to all these different places and things like that. So yeah.
It's and I know there's a lot of the administration side of a business is so easy to screen capture. It gets a little bit trickier, I think, with the guys out on site trying to document, you know, the processes, or like through video of actual hanging a water heater or whatever, you know, whatever that might be. It might take a little bit more tech.
Because we've become such a systems-orientated business, and so we use ServiceMate. And for anyone who hasn't checked out ServiceMate lately, they are an exceptional product. We
so good.
Can't rate them highly enough, you know. And one of the things that makes them so brilliant is that it's extremely powerful software, but it's also extremely simple to use. So I almost didn't go to them because I wanted something advanced.
And agile. I love how agile they are. They're always like trying to improve it.
It's just so they just think like, I've turned my business to base exactly how they, you know, I think a business should work, because it's improved our payment, cash flow, everything. But
sure, sorry,
I digress. But the knowledge feature in ServiceMate actually makes it extremely easy to document even site procedures. So we don't use it for everything. I'm not going to tell the guys how to suck eggs out there, but when an example of what we do use it for is like technical diagnosis of commercial hot water systems.
Sure.
You know, that can get quite fiddly and time consuming, and you know, a lot of guys just have no idea. Whereas if you can just go into knowledge and go Ream 26 or, you know, whatever system you're working on, and you can find out how to get into the error codes and find out what they are and how to test them. If it's a flame issue, how do you test the igniter? How do you test everything?
So is that's something that would live in ServiceMate, not so much in the wiki?
Yeah, we these days it's just the way that things have grown. Most of our like site procedures, the only thing that's in the wiki is probably our employment policies that our tradesmen might one day want to log in and have a look at, but chances are they probably never get around to that.
So it's more for the administration side of things, whereas all the other stuff lives out in the field, which makes sense. It's good to keep that.
Yeah.
And as well, it's great to have it available in something that they're used to using. Like they're used to using ServiceMate. So have it there, you know.
If my staff will complain about one thing, it's that I give them too many apps to use or different. Hey, you're going to try this program this month. Let me know how it goes.
You and me both. My app's Sumo bill every month this year.
It is great. Software costs. I always tell myself that software doesn't cost you money; it saves you money. But then I look at the profit and loss statement. That cost me money.
Yeah, Jesus.
So anyway,
nice. So, do we want to talk a little bit to hiring the right outsourcing member and those sort of like finding the right people for the role and that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah. So look, there's a few good key tips for doing that. So I guess my first thing I would say, and I guess the first thing to point out is, anyone who turns around and says outsourcing doesn't work I guarantee you has not followed these really simple steps.
Sure.
So one of the first things is a lot of people go for employing people that are in teams. They go and they get sold this from a virtual hire company. Hey, we'll give you 20 hours of admin work per week and you'll get one of, your team's alpha and there's 3 or 4 people in that team. Look, that person never becomes integrated into your business when you do that. They never become your, Joseph is literally my personal assistant. He reminds me when my wife's birthday is and these sort of things because I've forgotten. But, he literally, he's my right-hand man and he's always there and he's always got my back because he's been there for so long. And you're never going to get that when you're hiring a team. It also means that any time a mistake's made, you've got 3 people making that mistake because, there might be a hiccup in the process or something like that. If you end up only needing 10 hours of work done this week, you can't say to that person, do 10 hours worth of, Google Drive training or Google Docs training or whatever, some online course, which is going to upskill them and make them a better asset to your business. Right. There is a bit of a downside to that, and that is, it's a nice idea when you've got a team that if your VA is sick, everyone gets sick like they do in Australia. If they're sick or away or on holidays, you've got people that can step in and back them up. But I've certainly found that it just doesn't, they really can't. They can't become a real team member if you're not working with just the one person and really working with them. So as I've said, we used to hire from multiple different countries, and now we're basically 100% Philippines only. For those who don't know, people in the Philippines do all of their schooling in English. They've got impeccable accents that are very easy and clear to understand, and they're very well educated. 99% of the people we hire have degrees and secondary education and that sort of thing.
And the time difference is great in Australia.
Time difference is great. Most of them can spell better than our
smell
better than our plumbers, but also spell better. Another tip if you're hiring people, and this is something I see people fall into all the time, and people get into this rut and they go outsourcing so cheap, and they go, I'm going to hire someone really cheap, and they go and they hire someone for a couple of dollars an hour or something like that. Reality is I've been to the Philippines and it's not that cheap over there. It's not India. It actually costs money to live and to get things done. And petrol's the same price. And if you buy a computer, it's the same price as in Australia. If you go to Macca's, it's the same price. The wages are less over there, but the cost of living actually isn't. So if you're paying someone a ridiculously low fee, they're probably running 3 computers and working for 3 different customers at the same time, and you're never going to get that real engagement. So we offer our staff about double what they were earning at their previous employer. And so another tip is getting someone who's used to the Australian accent. So I in particular have quite a thick Australian accent, and I know if I haven't got an employee that's used to Australians, I can pick it up straight away because they can't understand me. I've had one person ask me if I can speak English. So whereas were
they American? A lot of Americans have asked me that when I lived over there.
No, this was.
Oh, you're from Australia? I didn't realize you guys spoke such good English. It is funny, isn't it? But on that, like I've got quite a number of staff based over in Pakistan, and my development team, and they're fantastic. These guys, they're great. And I noticed the other day, even in our messenger chat, we use Google Chat for all our internal messaging, and he starts typing, and I'm like, mate, you even type Australian now? He's saying things like grouse and awesome and all these things, and I thought it was so funny. I just screenshot. I'm like, mate, you've been Australianised.
Yeah. No, it's just getting exposure to it. So, we're normally aiming for Telstra managers when we're employing. Because we've got such a large base of ex-Telstra workers, and Telstra really appreciate the award that you gave us last year. And sorry for poaching your staff, but full credit to you. I mean, you do train very good staff, and that's probably why you're the leading telco. So, but yeah.
Yeah, nice. And so what about things like personality profiling? Like, obviously we're talking about trying to hire the right person for your team, and there's a lot of variables there. How do we eliminate some of those variables, and how do we streamline that? I mean, I'm guessing that you guys do a lot of that vetting anyway, right? When you're bringing on an employee for a company.
Yeah, so we're generally employing, that's what we do. So we employ the assistant, and we're hiring them out to Australian businesses. So one of the big differences we do there is, so we generally employ one virtual assistant, and as a starting package, that assistant will work for 2 Australian businesses for 20 hours a week.
Right.
But you've actually got them to answer the phone calls for 40 hours a week. So you and that other business are sharing that 20 hours, but they're not preset hours. Hence the phones can be answered anytime.
Yeah.
But what was your question, Matt? I've lost track there.
It was about things like when you're bringing someone on board, like how do you profile them to make sure they're the right fit for the organisation? Sure.
So yeah, we've got quite a detailed process of how we employ someone. So it starts with a resume and a video resume. We do some basic testing with them, and one of the most simple basic tests, like I said, is me having a chat with them and having a conversation with them. We also, a lot of the people are actually coming because we've got quite a big team over there now. We've got a lot of contacts, and 99% of the time, we've actually got people almost on a waiting list that are putting their hand up and saying, they know we pay really well. They know that they don't have to travel to and from work every day, which can be a two-hour trip each way. There's a lot of benefits to these guys. And then because we do look after them so well, we've actually never had a VA leave us. So every VA we've ever employed is still with us today, and they all really appreciate their job, which to me, there'd be nothing worse than me having to turn around to one of our customers and say, look, I'm sorry, your VA handed in notice this week. Look, we're prepared for it if it happens. We've got systems and processes in place to help that go smoothly. But to date, we've never had to implement them.
So typically, how long would it take if you were to, say, bring a new team member into a company? Like, what's the sort of time frame that you would envisage it to sort of become like a streamlined team member, you know what I mean? Like sort of integrated.
So 3 to 6 months. When we sign up a new client, we generally say to them, you're locked in. I can't remember if it's 3 or 6 months. It's one of those figures, but we generally say you're locked in for that period. Look, I'll be completely honest. I don't think if someone jumped up and down and said, no, we're not satisfied at all, we'd probably, work out an arrangement for them so they can get out of it. But the reason we do that is we want people to commit to training that person for 3 months and to actually working with them and to going, writing a system, and then when something's not working quite perfectly, go back over that system and go, which point, it was step forward that got let down and that sort of thing. So
I think that's an important thing for people to realise anyway. If you're going to go down this path, then it's very rarely a destination. It's always a journey. Like there's always ways to improve things, and there's ways that you can, you can optimize the processes and you can make things run better,
Like any business, and that's the same whether you're employing local people sitting at a desk next to you, and whether you've got someone at a desk in the Philippines, or your tradesmen out in the field as well. There's always new improvements and better things to do. So
I think the difference is, from my experience anyway, when you're working with somebody that's in the office, you can stand over them and go, no, do this, and this, and this. Whereas having somebody that's based in a different office or different location, whether it's locally or abroad, you're really forced to improve processes, which is an amazing business asset at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's one of the real benefits of working with a VA is that you're actually working on your business. Every time you sit down to write a process, you're actually working on your business. So at the end of, if you've employed a VA and you've done it for a couple of years, there's no doubt your business is going to be worth more money at the end of that time, because you're going to have documented so many more steps of your business. You're much more closer to automating it and having it, self-driven or partly self-driven or something like that. So.
Yeah, cool. All right, what do you want to talk about next?
Look, time's a limited resource. It's the one thing when you're outsourcing tasks to a VA. You get all different sort of tasks, right? You can get some that are 1-for-1. So, in other words, if it takes the VA 1 hour to do, they've actually saved you 1 hour of time. So, there's a lot of sort of administration, bookkeeping sort of tasks that are going to be close to that 1-to-1. But then I say, even if it's 2-to-1, 2 hours of the VA's time to 1 of yours, and I think even if it was 3-to-1, you're still talking, $30, $45 or something like that per hour. Still a hell of a lot better that your time is freed up to, whether it's spend time with family, whether it's continuing to build your business, whether it's continue building systems or out there actually completing jobs and generating revenue. You can make a lot more money or have a lot better lifestyle, by sourcing these mundane sort of tasks. And I suppose another...
And even the non-mundane tasks,
yeah,
like you were just saying before.
I think anything that's repetitive is mundane, in my opinion. I like to do new things, and I like new challenges. So,
I think so. I mean, to give the listeners a bit of an overview, my experience with this whole process, and by no means am I an expert, I'd love to hear your feedback and your experience with what I'm about to say, Tom. But whenever I've gone down the path of hiring, we're constantly hiring, like yourselves, we're growing, and like we're always bringing in new team members. The only way that it's ever worked well for me is to tie it all back to our vision from an org structure, like to understand what our business looks like and what we want it to look like in 12 months. So we can then go and design processes and, procedures, roles, responsibilities for that the task that we want to offload either for ourselves, or maybe we want to free a team member up, or maybe it's for a role in a position that doesn't even exist yet, but we know it has to in order to get us to the next stage in our business. So pretty much everything that we do ties back to that org structure. And I've learned that through, listening and over the years being taught by people like Al Levy and Danny Kerr from BT Academy and all these guys, right? So for us, that's sort of the starting point. It's looking at the picture in 12 months and saying, well, if we're going to get to here, we're going to need to bring someone in there, and that role is going to be responsible for these things, and how they carry out these responsibilities, we need to document. So is that kind of how you see it working best for businesses too, or how do you do
yes
this?
And no. I mean, certainly having specific tasks for specific people in the business, and having you've got to have a system in place for how they know that task is required. So it might be, hey, every morning, and you clear the unscheduled job list, or every morning you clear the invoicing, so every morning you do bank reconciliation, whatever it might be. I've come into a few troubles with org charts, and then people coming in, and then people, where do they slot in on the org chart? Are they above this person or below this person? And it's caused me a few headaches in my business of late. So I'm not certain that having it up on the wall of this person's. I know when we first implemented it, I was a massive fan of it because it helped resolve a few issues for me at the time. Since we've had a bit of a shuffle around, it's almost made things harder for me, if I'm being honest.
You probably haven't done it right.
Yeah, quite possibly. But yes, certainly, I mean, like I say, our admin, Joseph, is very much the head of our admin team. And then Jonas, I guess, who's our second VA, sort of his assistant.
Yeah. So anyway, I suppose the point I'm getting at there is, if you're going to go and hire someone, which happens all the time, like to be the golden goose, and they don't have a clearly defined set of roles and responsibilities they need to follow, then you're basically setting yourself up for a shitload of disappointment, cost, and
training
and destruction really in the business, because unless you're prepared to put the work in to equip them properly so they can deliver that role the way you want it delivered, then you're trying to push shit uphill.
Yeah, and in that way, we do have our org structure in our sort of more officey type role. We do have the org structure. It's in the field type role that it's been more difficult to say. Yeah.
Love it. Well, Tom, this has been great. And I encourage all you guys out there, definitely start looking towards this. If you're in a situation where, again, look down the track, even if you will, look down 12 months, 12 months down the track, where you want your business to be. Have a look at some of those positions that you're going to need help in, because like Tom's just saying, like Tom's been saying in this conversation, there's so many things you can outsource which can free you up and which can facilitate scale. And you don't have to be across every single role and every single task in your business. And if you are, just be aware of the fact that you are right now, and that you will probably never scale to the next level until you start getting some help. And that help can come in the form of, either locally or offshore, team members. So there's pros and cons to both. But certainly don't just disregard, this whole conversation now about bringing in virtual assistants and bringing in help that can, aid your business, because it's super powerful. And like Tom is a testament to this. He runs a plumbing business, and he's been doing this for years, and he essentially doesn't, like he said before, his VA knows more about his business than he does. So like it can be done, guys. If you want to remove yourself from areas of your business and you want to free up some time so you can, head up things like, becoming the chairman of Master Plumbers, or becoming the president of Master Plumbers, or just doing heaps of other boring shit, you can do that. Tom, what should we do? We should steer people to the website, I guess, virtualtradeassistant.com.
.com.au.
.com.au, sorry. So virtualtradeassistant.com. siteshed.com.au, and the email there is tom@. So if you guys have got any questions for Tom, go ahead. I think there's going to be an affiliate offer as well available, guys. So if you want to actually speak to Tom and you're serious about engaging somebody to help you out through some staffing issues, use the affiliate code because you'll get a discount at that by using that. So you'll be able to get one for a special price for the site shedders. All that information is going to be available, guys, on the show notes. Otherwise, if you're not sure about how to find that, ping us in the Facebook group. Let us know. Tom's in that group. He's always chatting in there, which is great. So if you've got any questions, you can always ask Tom, and I'm always there as well. So you can hit me up on Facebook Messenger if you've got any questions or whatever it might be. Tom, thank you very much for your time. Is there anything you wanted to cover off on before we roll out?
Like I've said before, I'd just say don't hold back, because you're only going to get busier in business, and the busier you are, the harder it's going to be to implement. So you're better off doing it sooner rather than later. The annual cost is going to be recouped by your additional time out there doing jobs or actually building your business. So
it's amazing, isn't it, Tom? Like when you bring somebody into a role and they fill a position well, and you look back on it in 6 months' time and you think, how the hell was I doing this? How was I fitting this into my schedule? Like you can almost never go back.
When we decided to employ our second full-time VA for an admin role, it was purely because Joseph had a couple of sick days or something like that. And no, I think he wanted a week holiday. It was the first time he ever actually asked for holidays. And my head just spun when he left. We really struggled without him. So I went, you know what, we're putting on a second one. I don't care if I don't have the workload for it. We're putting on a second one now. Yeah, and they've been with us ever since. So.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, mate. Well, thank you again for your time. Once again, listeners, if you've got any experiences with outsourcing, or if you've got any questions, then hit us up in the Facebook group. Head across to Facebook, search groups, The Site Shed, and you'll find us there. It's an awesome group, 6,000 plus global business owners in there with all with high-level conversations, many of them relating to HR, hiring, firing, that kind of thing. So definitely be part of the conversation over there. Tom, thank you very much for your time, sir. I know you're a busy man, and I look forward to chatting to you again in the future.
Thanks a lot, mate. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.